Hello, everybody. Once again, this is the brief Torg Eternity Delphi Council debriefings. And I'm Lehman Crafton, the Torg Eternity line developer. And hopefully, this is the last brief one we do for a while until something else unexpected turns up. So it's just myself. And today we are answering, or I am answering, I'm using the royal we. That is pretty pretentious of me, isn't it? But I am going over collision damage. Heath sends an email saying, "Hi, loving the podcast. Thank you so much for doing it." And that's what I like to hear. That's why we do these podcasts, is to help players, people interested in Torg Eternity, learn the system, understand the system, etc. So if you have a question, please email us at torgdcd@gmail.com, and we will read your emails and answer any questions or read your comments, etc. So it says, "I'm discovering the difference between reading the rules and thinking that I understand them, then trying to apply the rules in the middle of the game as a game master and discovering that I don't. Collision damage is what tripped me up last game." So yes, that is one thing. You can read these rules and you think you understand it, but sometimes you might skip a word. You're reading a little fast, or you misunderstand a word, or things like that. Or the thing that was always and still sometimes is a problem with me is previous rules. So that can be when the Torg Eternity first came out. A lot of rules are very similar, but not exactly the same as classic Torg, and a lot of assumptions I had were found out to be incorrect. Or now my problem is, being the line developer, is there will be iterations of a new rule being that we come up with, or something new, and it gets changed a couple of times before the finished version. And I might be really, in my head, might be really something that I'm remembering a previous one. So yes, reading the rules, understanding the rules, I completely understand where that can be in conflict, and thinking that you just know the rules. Or in my classic Torg days, I just assumed the game master was saying the correct things, and then when I started playing, I had incorrect information that I was doing, and then when I delved into the rules, I couldn't find them. And the one that I like to say is that the game master had a 3 strikes you're out on reconnection. So if you got disconnected, you would reconnect, and if you failed, you could try to reconnect, and if you failed on that third time, you transformed. So that was something that when I got into the actual rules and never saw, was, oh wow, we were doing it a completely different way. Now, it was kind of fun in that game to have that happen, but it's not something that was in the game, and I thought it was an official rule, but it wasn't. So that was part of where your table variations happened. So that's another thing to try to at least be aware of, that something that you and your table might do might be a table variation, which is perfectly fine. But if somebody else isn't using it, it might be because it's not actually an official rule, or maybe your new group, your new table is using a variation. But let's continue with this email. When it comes to person combat, I understand subtracting toughness of the target from the damage value of the weapon and finding the difference on the damage results table to determine damage, shock, and wounds taken by target, but I don't think I understand it when it comes to vehicle combat and applying damage. Could you review those rules? So yes, I will review those rules. One vehicle in the chase I ran had the Juggernaut trait, which allowed the vehicle to ignore its maneuverability rating when testing for a step at the cost of a collision. I think in game time I found the statement that collision damage is top speed of the vehicle plus 2 BD. I tried to apply the damage without remembering the driver gets a free vehicles test as part of the resolving the collision. My main question is whether the resulting damage value is checked against the vehicle's toughness, the passenger's toughness, or both. A collision that barely scratches the paint on a tank seems to cause deadly wounds to the driver of the tank, which makes me think that I'm running this wrong. Help? So it could be. That's the thing. in of collisions. So if you're watching and you see my head moving back and forth, I have the email on this screen, camera on the middle screen, and I have the rules on the opposite screen. So collision. So basically, testing is against a 10. No DN is set. So unless the game master has a higher or lower DN, then a 10 for that free test happens. So the pilot or driver of the vehicle gets a, say, land vehicles check, air vehicles check, etc., to try to lessen or negate damage being done. So the first thing is you're having a collision. The driver makes a test, an appropriate vehicles test, and it's a free action, so it doesn't cost an action or do anything like that. And they will probably want to roll high. So this is something that if you if you haven't spent resources, it's probably a thing, and then you don't have to get into the math or the weeds. But there's a chart on page 133 that shows what happens. So the damage is the top speed, and it starts at a +2 BD. So the top speed value of the vehicle is kind of the base damage, and then 2 BD. And if they fail, the driver fails that test, that is the damage that applies to the vehicle and to the occupants of the vehicle. If they get a standard success, then it's only top speed +1 BD. If the pilot driver gets a good success, it's just the top speed. And if they get um, an outstanding success, then there's no effect, no damage at all. So the damage you take is kind of dependent on the driver's test. Hopefully, they don't roll a 1 um, and have an automatic failure on that. But everybody in there and the vehicle takes that damage where you, and it goes to you. It's physical damage, so armor could reduce that damage. Plus, there is a reduction based off of if you're wearing seatbelts, you have that damage reduced by 2. So if you have, say, a top speed value of a 12 for the vehicle that you're in, and you say the driver only got a standard success, so you take that, you roll a BD, which may explode. Hopefully, it doesn't for you. And then whatever the result of that is, you subtract 2 from that if you're wearing seatbelts. If your vehicle has something like airbags or other advanced safety measures, so maybe they're like weird force fields in the Nile Empire or something similar in Cyber Papacy or Pan Pacifica, then you subtract 4 from that total damage. And then that damage is compared to the occupants of the vehicle, not the vehicle itself, because those airbags, those seatbelts, aren't going to help the vehicle. They're going to help the occupants. So hopefully everybody's wearing their seatbelt. Hopefully your vehicle has airbags or something, and then you have a -4 to whatever that total damage was rolled. But better than not, the outstanding result is what is going to save everybody. There are instances where, yes, your passengers can be really beat up when the vehicle itself isn't, but that would be anything from somebody flying, not having their seatbelt, flying through the window and smashing out on the pavement or the ground outside and hurting themselves more than the vehicle it was hurt. The vehicle might be damaged, or like a tank, you're not in a seatbelt and you're hitting things inside. Something sticks in you. Uh, Other things can happen that you could be more damaged than the vehicle. That's just kind of why I would say, everybody, let's make sure the pilot succeeds and gets an outstanding success, so then we don't have to worry about damage. But the vehicle is, or you swerve and you stop, a couple of inches away from the thing, and then nobody in the vehicle doesn't take damage itself. So wear your seatbelts. have your safety devices in it, and the your armor also should, if and this is something I would say the game master should think about. If there's some type of armor that somebody's wearing that you don't think would be pertinent to the being in a vehicle, I would think having a helmet would help you, even if you're in a car being jostled around, or plate mail, or other type of armor would help you when a steering wheel is hitting you in the chest, or things are flying around hurting you that have got that were not fixed, or you slam into them, etc. So I would allow that reduction in damage from armor, and then to start off with whatever your success levels were. So I think you basically probably had it half right, Heath. So thank you for writing in. And again, everybody, if you wish to give a comment, have a question, etc., that is torgdcd@gmail.com. And until next time, I truly hope that you have fun in your own cosmos. Bye.